The tallest mountain on Earth is not in the Himalayas. It is not in Tibet. It is not on the border of Nepal and China. It has never been summited by a famous mountaineer. It has never killed a climber in a death zone. It has never appeared on a single list of the world's tallest mountains in any textbook, any atlas, any classroom wall chart, any documentary you've ever watched. It is sitting in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, in the state of Hawaii, and it is nearly a mile taller than Mount Everest. Its name is Mauna Kea. It rises 10,210 meters from its base on the ocean floor to its summit above the clouds. That is 33,500 feet. Everest, measured from sea level, stands at 8,849 meters. The difference is over 1,360 meters. Mauna Kea is taller than Everest by more than the entire height of Ben Nevis, the tallest mountain in the British Isles. The difference isn't marginal. It isn't ambiguous. It isn't a rounding error. It is a mile of mountain that the entire world has been trained to ignore. And the reason you've never heard this, the reason no map shows it, the reason no school teaches it, the reason the tallest mountain on Earth sits in the middle of the most studied ocean on the planet and remains invisible, is not geological, it's definitional. Someone decided how to measure a mountain, and the way they decided erased the tallest one. The deeper I went into who made that decision and why, the more I found something that has nothing to do with geology and everything to do with who gets to draw the line where measurement begins. Start with the line, because the line is where the erasure happens. The tallest mountain in the world is defined as the mountain whose summit is highest above mean sea level. That's the rule. That's the only rule, not the mountain with the greatest total height. Not the mountain that rises furthest from its own base, not the mountain with the most vertical mass, the mountain whose peak is furthest above a theoretical average of the ocean's surface. A line drawn not through the mountain, but through the water, an abstraction, a mathematical construct, and the moment that construct became the standard, Mauna Kea disappeared. Because Mauna Kea begins on the ocean floor. Over 6,000 meters of its height, more than half its total mass, sits below sea level, below the line, below the point where counting begins. The mountain is there. Every meter of it is there. But the standard says you don't start counting until you reach the surface of the water. And by the time you reach the surface of the water, Mauna Kea has already risen higher than the Alps, and you haven't counted a single meter of it. This raises a simple but critical question. Who decided that sea level was the starting line? The answer leads back to the same institutions that drew every other line the modern world lives inside. In 1802, the British East India Company launched the Great Trigonometrical Survey of India, the most ambitious cartographic project of the 19th century. Over the following decades, teams of British surveyors working across the subcontinent measured, triangulated, and mapped the territory that the empire controlled. The survey required a universal reference point, a baseline from which all elevations could be calculated. They chose mean sea level, measured at tidal stations on the Indian coast. Every mountain height calculated by the survey was expressed as distance above this baseline. In 1856, the survey calculated the height of a Himalayan peak designated Peak 15. The calculation, performed by a Bengali mathematician named Radhanath Sikdar, working under the direction of Andrew Waugh, the Surveyor General of India, produced a figure of 29,002 feet above mean sea level. It was the highest figure the survey had ever recorded. Peak 15 was declared the tallest mountain on Earth. It was later renamed Mount Everest, after George Everest, a previous surveyor general who had never seen the mountain and who objected to the naming. The Tibetans had called it Chomolungma for centuries. The Nepalis called it Sagarmatha. The British erased both names and replaced them with a bureaucrat's surname. And the standard they used, height above mean sea level, became the only standard. Not because it was the most accurate way to measure a mountain, Not because it captured the most information about a mountain's actual size, because it was the standard the British Empire used, and the British Empire's maps became the world's maps. As if they were following instructions they didn't fully understand. Now look at what that standard does when you apply it to Mauna Kea. Above sea level, Mauna Kea's summit stands at 4,207 meters. That puts it nowhere near the world's highest peaks. It doesn't crack the top 100. It barely registers in a global context. But below sea level, beneath the waterline, beneath the arbitrary plane where counting begins, there are another 6,000 meters of mountain. Solid rock, volcanic basalt, built over 1 million years by eruptions from the Hawaiian hotspot. Real mountain, real mass, real height, uncounted. The standard doesn't deny that Mauna Kea is tall. It simply defines tallness in a way that makes most of Mauna Kea invisible. The mountain isn't erased from the map, it's erased from the measurement. And since the measurement is the only thing the map reports, the effect is the same. You look at a map of the world's tallest mountains and Mauna Kea isn't on it, not because it isn't tall enough. Because the line where counting begins was drawn through the water and the water hides the mountain. The evidence suggests something much larger than a technical standard. Because Mauna Kea isn't the only mountain the sea level standard distorts. Mount Chimborazo in Ecuador, a volcano standing 6,263 meters above sea level, is not even close to Everest by the standard measurement. But the Earth is not a perfect sphere. It bulges at the equator, and because Chimborazo sits almost exactly on the equator, its summit is further from the center of the Earth than the summit of Everest. By 2,100 meters, if you define tallest as furthest from the planet's core, Chimborazo wins, not Everest. And then there is Denali, Mount McKinley, the tallest mountain in North America. Its summit stands at 6,190 meters above sea level, far below Everest. But Denali rises from a plain that is roughly 600 meters above sea level. Its base to summit height is approximately 5,500 meters. Everest, by contrast, rises from the Tibetan Plateau, which is already at roughly 5,200 meters. Everest's base to summit height is only about 4,650 meters. Denali, measured from the ground it stands on, is taller than Everest measured from the ground it stands on. And nobody calls Denali taller. The pattern repeats with unsettling precision. Every alternative measurement, base to summit, distance from Earth's core, total geological mass, produces a different winner. And in every case, the alternative winner is not in the Himalayas. Everest wins only by one standard, the standard the British Empire established, the standard that every map, every textbook, every classroom, every documentary has adopted without question for over a century and a half. The silence was deafening. I want to pause here and ask something that isn't usually asked. What did the Hawaiians know about their mountain before the British drew their line? Because Mauna Kea was not unnamed, it was not unmeasured, it was not unknown. In Hawaiian cosmology, Mauna Kea is the pico, the navel, the point where the physical world connects to the spiritual one. Its summit is where Papa, the Earth Mother, meets Wakea, the Sky Father. The mountain is not just tall, it is the axis, the center, the point around which the Hawaiian understanding of the universe is organized. The Hawaiians didn't measure Mauna Kea in meters. They measured it in meaning. They understood it as the tallest thing in their world, not because they had triangulated it with a theodolite, but because they had lived beside it for centuries, had watched it rise from the ocean, had felt its presence from every point on the island, had built their entire spiritual architecture around its mass. They knew it was the biggest thing there was. They didn't need a British surveyor to confirm it. And no British surveyor ever did. Because the British standard didn't just ignore the 6,000 meters beneath the waterline. It ignored the civilization that had been living with the mountain for over 1,000 years. The Hawaiian understanding of Mauna Kea as the tallest, the most sacred, the most significant mountain in their world was not consulted, not integrated, not even footnoted when the global standard was established. The line was drawn through the water, the mountain was cut in half, and the people who knew it best were not asked. The deeper I went, the more I found that the sea level standard follows the same pattern as every other institutional standard I've studied. A measurement system developed by a specific culture in a specific century for a specific political purpose, adopted as universal and never questioned. The Gregorian calendar, the 440 Hertz tuning standard, the 4-taste tongue map, the 6'8" door. In every case, a standard was established by an institution with the power to impose it, and in every case, the standard was treated as natural, as inevitable, as the only way the thing could possibly be measured. And in every case, the standard erased something that a different measurement would have revealed. Now consider what the erasure actually hides, because Mauna Kea is not just tall, it is massive. It is one of the largest single structures on Earth. Its volume is estimated at approximately 3,200 cubic miles. Its weight is so great that it has depressed the Pacific tectonic plate beneath it by several kilometers. The ocean floor sags under the mountain. If you could lift Mauna Kea out of the water and stand it on a plain next to Everest, Everest would look like a foothill. The visual difference would be staggering. You wouldn't need a measurement standard to tell you which one was bigger. Your eyes would tell you. Your body would tell you. The mountain would tell you. But you can't see it, because most of it is underwater, and the standard says underwater doesn't count. The official explanation collapses here, because we're told the sea level standard is practical, objective, universal. It provides a common reference point for comparing elevations across the globe, and certainly a common reference is useful. But useful and accurate are not the same thing. The sea level standard is useful for comparing peaks that start above the waterline. It is actively misleading for mountains that start below it. It doesn't just fail to capture Mauna Kea's height, it conceals it. It takes the tallest mountain on Earth and files it under unremarkable by defining the starting line at a point that eliminates 60% of the mountain before the measuring begins. I don't have a complete theory. I have a question that multiplies the deeper I look. Why is the tallest mountain on Earth, measured from base to summit, not listed as the tallest mountain on Earth in any major atlas? Why does the measurement standard established by a 19th century colonial survey remain the unchallenged global standard for elevation? Why has no international body proposed an alternative metric that captures total mountain height rather than summit altitude above a theoretical ocean surface? Why does every child on Earth learn that Everest is the tallest mountain in the world when Guinness World Records itself distinguishes between highest and tallest and recognizes Mauna Kea as the latter? Why does the distinction exist in the record but not in the classroom? And the question underneath all the others. The one that sits beneath 6,000 meters of Pacific water, in the basalt that has been building for 1,000,000 years, in the mass that has been pressing down on the ocean floor since before the British Empire existed, since before the theodolite was invented, since before anyone drew a line through the water and said, "This is where counting begins." What else are we not seeing because the standard tells us where to start looking? What other measurements, what other mountains, what other truths are hidden beneath a line that someone drew for convenience and that the world accepted as fact? I'll leave you with this. There is a mountain in Hawaii that rises over 10,000 meters from the floor of the Pacific Ocean to its summit above the clouds. It is nearly a mile taller than Everest. It is one of the largest single structures on the planet. It has been sacred to the Hawaiian people for 1,000 years. They called it the navel of the earth. They knew it was the biggest thing there was. Then a survey drew a line through the water, Everything below the line stopped counting, and the tallest mountain on Earth became invisible. Not because it shrank, because the ruler changed, and nobody asked the mountain.